I'm an alien abductee.
I've been interacting with UFOs since I was a child.
At the age of 3, I would be visited in the middle of the night by this invisible, two-legged being that would jump on my chest and my stomach.
I woke up in the middle of a Saturday night in my underwear on the beach. My dad had to unlock all the deadbolts. He's like, how did you get out? When I did regression work with the hypnoregressionists years later, I realized that they landed me there, the ETs landed me there, so I'd remember that experience.
It just changes you instantly, and you can't focus on your career or any other normal conversation with anyone ever again.
What did you think it was?
I didn't know. I thought it was, at the time, almost like a dream.
It becomes an obsession. And that's what's so tragic about the way it affects people's lives.
I didn't believe it myself because everybody told me that's just in your head.
If that happened to me and that was real, then what else has happened to me?
So I look up, I see this thing in the sky. I go, Dad, stop the car.
The question is, what's the nature of it? What's the agenda of it? And how do we interface with it in a way that is not detrimental to our existence?
So you have to pursue this.
All of the mythos around these phenomena, I think, are seated in the alien abduction phenomenon.
So hold on to your hats. This is not as rare as you think. People are having paranormal encounters all the time, every walk of life. And so if you don't open your mouth first, you'll never hear their stories.
Throughout history, countless individuals have shared tales of close encounters, unearthly lights in the sky, missing time, and beings that defy description. But what are they truly experiencing? Are these visions fragments of the mind distorted by fear and imagination? Or are they glimpses of a hidden reality, one that challenges the very nature of existence? Is it contact with alien life? Are they explorers, messengers, a future version of ourselves, or something far more inexplicable? This is the story of those who have experienced these things, and the questions that remain long after the encounter is over.
March 1970, one afternoon, maybe 3 in the afternoon, my dad picked me up from school. I look through the windshield of the car as we're driving, and I see through the windshield an enormous silver V hovering above my father's car. So I look up, I see this thing in the sky. I go, Dad, stop the car. We get out, we stand in front of the car, and we're looking straight up, and there's like the Pyramid of Egypt is like hovering above my father's. And I'm like, Dad, look, it's Star Trek. I believe today it was a man-made military drone incorporating extraterrestrial technology.
Fast forwarding to about the age of 8, I was sleeping in a bunk bed at that time. And I remember, because I just started sleeping there, my brother was on the lower bunk, and I heard this strange sound that I hadn't heard. So I got up out of the bunk bed and carefully was walking down the hallway, which was dimly lit. And I very specifically remember it because my heart was pounding and my respiration was elevated, and I could feel that, I felt like this is something, I don't know what it is. As I got to the end, before I turned into the living room, I just went blank. And next thing I knew was that I was back in my bunk bed somehow a couple hours later, and have no recollection of that whatsoever. And this is the type of thing, again, you don't tell your friends at school, because they think, number one, you're living in a haunted house, or you're nuts, or you're lying.
Also, when I was 5, we would see, my brother also included various things in our room. We grew up in a house that had a lot of activity, a lot of phenomenon stuff. Many times when we would go to bed, I would have a window and I would constantly see this green head, literally a green head, as if it was just propped, just standing there, sitting there at the window. And I would put the blankets over my head and I would go to sleep. I called her the lady with the lights in her eyes. That was how I best described it when I was a kid. I would say the tall lady with the lights in her eyes. I told this experience to my brother, and my brother had tears coming down his eyes. And he's like, I thought I was the only one that saw that. I thought I was the only one that saw that green type of figure. There was things that were going on, and 5 years old, I could see it.
I didn't really have much interest in anything aliens or whatever until 1995. All these weird things started happening to me. I started having a lot of anxiety, and I had sore breasts and just weird like pregnancy symptoms, but I'd never been pregnant that I knew of. So in December the same year, we were walking our dog in the daytime. She started barking at the squirrel that ran up a tree. There was this black thing in the air behind the palm tree, way, 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 way up. And it was kind of hard to make out. It was so high, but it seemed like a triangle. It had a shimmer around the blackness. It made it hard to see the shape. And then we looked back and it was gone. I'm going home to report it. And I went home, and they actually had in the phone book back then a UFO hotline. And I called it, and it was MUFON. So the guy, Bill, tells me, we also have these meetings once a month at the Pickwick Center in Burbank if you want to come. And I'm like, oh, I am there. I'm totally there. When's the next meeting? So I started going to MUFON meetings. Meanwhile, December was not over. So we saw this UFO. We go on with our lives. The anxiety builds. And I got this attack of sleep paralysis. And I had had that before very, very infrequently in my life. But this time, it was so scary because I heard a voice say my name, like a little mechanical sounding voice said my name. That's all it said, Camille. And it was real fast. And I was like, what the hell? You know, when I came out of it, I was moaning. I don't know if you've ever had it, but it's really hard to break out of it. And sometimes your voice is the first thing that will break through. And so I came out of it and I was crying and I was like, oh my God, it happened again. What is going on with me?
This man in Australia, he woke up to a hybrid alien woman straddling him in bed. And another woman was sitting on the foot of the bed. But this hybrid alien woman who's having sex with him while he's paralyzed, her eyes were too large, he said. Her cheekbones and chin were pointy, kind of too pointy. And she had white hair, long white hair. And so these two women have their way with him, and then he blacks out, and he wakes up the next morning, and there's a hair in bed with him, white hair in bed. But you look closer at this hair, it's clear, like fishing line. So he gets this thing analyzed, he gets it tested, and sure enough, it is a clear hair. And there is no human type of hair that's clear. Even albinos don't have clear hair. So it's an unknown type of hair, previously unseen, unknown, and then it tests out genetically as human. It's Basque, Gaelic, and a branch of Chinese that only 1% of the Chinese population. It tests out really bizarre, but human DNA.
New Year's Eve, I was so depressed and freaked out. I stay home and I binge watch the Learning Channel, and they're having UFO documentaries back to back. And I'm watching this one about abduction, and they had interviewed this woman who had put a tape recorder under her bed, and she had recorded that voice saying her name on tape. Then I knew it was, I knew it was real before, but then I knew it was not a hallucination or audio hallucination. It was like a recurring thing that happens. And so I started going to MUFON meetings, and one of the first ones I went to was Kim Carlsberg, and she had written a book with Daryl Anka, and it was about her abductions. And at the end of that lecture, I was just shaking. I was just like, I am one of these people. She had in the back of her book, she had a checklist too. And I'm flipping through her book at the table in the back, and it's got like, you might have been abducted if you got all this going on. And I'm looking and I'm like, oh my God, I have all like 85% of these symptoms. And I was introduced to Barbara Lamb that night, who's a hypnotherapist. And I said, I have to make an appointment with you. I want to target this sleep paralysis I had this weird night in December. Can we do that? And she said, yeah. So I scheduled it. In that first regression, I got these beings with these like rectangular eyes, or they were not human looking eyes. And they did have an actual tube in me and were trying to suck my soul out of me. That was what I remembered, standing around my bed. So I don't know. And then we targeted this thing in December of 95, and I had this memory. It was colors And then the colors turned into this column of blue light that was like solid. It was like a column. And when it touched me, I curled up into a fetal position. And I went up, and I was just saying, up, 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 up. And I went through the ceiling, and I'm panicking. And then the next thing I know, I'm unfolded, I'm flat on a table in this misty white light room that I can't make out walls or door, just this mistiness. And I was terrified, and I was saying, everybody's looking at me, everybody's looking at me. And she said, who's looking at you? And I said, I don't know. And she made me. She was like, well, look to your left. What do you see? So I looked, and there's this row of beings, and they all look alike. And they have the long arms and the big heads and the black eyes. And they're kind of misty. And they were saying, relax, relax, relax. And then I felt like something pulling my knees apart, and I was freaking out. And Barbara said, you know, you can remember this by going up above your body and watching it from that perspective. And I thought, okay, let's do that. So I did that. And there was a being that I couldn't see between my legs. Couldn't make it out. It was blocked. And I saw a flash, just like with a flash of the gun, I saw a flash of this gynecological tool that was like a big, scary device, like an egg beater kind of a thing. She said, what do they want? And I said, I have a baby and they want it. And so the one I couldn't see, puts this thing in me and cranks it open and swiftly removes this very tiny, like walnut size skin thing, baby, and walks out of the room. And I'm like devastated, just crying. And I was so bereft, and I was so insulted, and I was so traumatized. And I said, they didn't even let me see it. And I'm crying, crying, crying. And that's all I remember. I come out of the hypnosis. It was life-changing.
The abduction phenomenon, it's mostly Caucasian. And we're thinking, why? Why would aliens care specifically about Caucasian DNA? Either they're interested in humans and they're interested in all of us, but we only make up 16% of the population. Why so much? Why care so much about that? That was making no sense. But if they're a split off race that happens to be Caucasian, then they have all kinds of use for Caucasian DNA. That's another reason why they can breed so easily. We have this evidence of them breeding with us going back thousands of years. You know, in the book of Enoch, it talks about them.
They could be creating an invader force to take over, to infiltrate. That's what David Jacobs thinks. They might need our genetics because there's something wrong with theirs, and they need a hybrid scenario. But from what I hear of people having memories of teaching the babies, the children, how to be human. Like, this is what humans do, this is how they act. Like, it makes you think it's for an eventual takeover, or, I don't know, a lot. Every time I say something negative like that, I can hear all my friends that are the pro-alien types going, that's not what's happening. They're like, you're helping them, and it's all great, and they're, that's the thing in this community, is you meet people you think politics is bad. I mean, you got the pro-alien, the anti-alien, the people, like, I went, off to church for 9 years and thought they were all demonic. You've got all these different perspectives,
In the mid-'80s, they started talking about this thing with people being kidnapped and crossbreeding. I was coming down from Shasta with two friends of mine, actually from Oregon. We're watching this thing track us for about 30 or 40 miles. And it was like, wow, this thing, what is this? Finally, we pull over and we look, and it's like, wow, it kind of stopped. It was like following us and then coming in and out and changing colors and doing different things. And it was like, really, it was amazing. All of a sudden, it split into 3 different parts and started twirling. And then it came back together. Then it started coming towards us. And we're like, wow. We could hear this pulsating, just like, we're standing there. I'm thinking we're going to be taking up, the Christian guy screaming, and all of a sudden, 0 to light speed, that thing was gone. It just disappeared. I brought a specialist regressionist lady in to do the kind of work with her, and that's when I found out about the childhood thing when I was on the beach, that was a UFO experience. And then when I started to do this one, immediately I had a blonde lady in a silver spacesuit sit down by the lake. She was calming me down by the lake, see the water, the regular hypnotic stuff, right? It turned out that she was the one picking us up to go up in the spaceships and stuff. I wanted to find these guys and find out what they were going through. And so I couldn't find my guy Carl, but I found this guy that was the Christian guy. I found him, and I said, hey, I'm having this really incredible experience, and I'm doing this UFO thing, and I want to talk to you about it. And he was like, I don't want to talk about it. And I said, look, I don't know you that well, but I'm having really unusual experiences. I've done a regressionist thing. I know we're connected on this, and I want to talk to you about it. And we're in this together. So he finally opens up, and he goes, these people are picking me up in a spaceship, and they're taking me up, and then they're jacking me off. They're getting me off to take my sperm. So I was kind of like, first thing I thought was, oh my God, maybe the guy is kind of nuts. I was like, okay, what's going on here, And he goes, yeah, they're using it for something as an experiment or something. I don't know what they're doing and stuff. But I know what's going on, and it's been happening regularly. And he said, yeah. He said, this blonde lady in a silver spacesuit comes and picks me up. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what did you say? And we brought him down there, and he was dealing with the same lady I was, a Palladian.
They took a baby, at least one. They may have taken more. I went to see Bashar. Daryl Anka is this guy who channels this being called Bashar. He says it's an alien from the future, and he said I had children on the ships. I don't know. All I know is I kind of wonder if they're not feeding off of our fear. I don't know if our fear is just so primal and we can't help it when we're in their presence. We just feel so afraid. Or if there's a use of that fear energy. I tend to, lean towards something negative going on.
The vampire and the demon and the succubus and the incubus, all of the mythos around these phenomena, I think are seated in the alien abduction phenomena. What happens in an alien abduction? People are paralyzed. They can't move. A creature with a white face and frightening eyes is able to paralyze you. Sometimes they have sex with you and there's a false pregnancy. They take blood, DNA, they take genetic material. The incubus thing is where a male demon has sex with a woman and she's pregnant. She shows all the signs of being pregnant, but then the pregnancy becomes false and she gives birth to just air. The fetus is stolen, and then they are put back again, and then sometimes years later they're introduced to their hybrid offspring. And this phenomenon has been documented that women, they're pregnant, they go to the obstetrician, he does an ultrasound, they've got the little fetuses there, and then 4 months later it looks like the womb has been cleaned out. It's not like a miscarriage. Miscarriages are still tissue inside, and frequently the doctors have to, clean the woman out. But in this case, it looks like she'd never been pregnant. I think we know what's going on with what happens after, in that the Dulce papers, the Dulce, New Mexico, the Dulce Air Force Base is this ufology community, alien human military base under the Archuleta Mesa near Dulce, New Mexico. It's a 7-layer deep base. The top 5 layers are human only, but the bottom 2 layers are military/alien personnel. Both the Greys and the reptiloids have been seen in the Dulce base, and they were working together, which I find interesting as well. But the Dulce papers, one time a security guard he didn't have the access to the lower levels, right? But he went down there, he snuck down there. And what he saw were rooms full of vats, hundreds of these vats, growing hybrid alien beings inside the vats, either grays or hybrids, they said. So I think what happens is they're taking the fetuses and they finish gestating them in these vats.
So I found myself saying things like, oh, humans this, humans that, and like talking like I wasn't a human. I thought that was weird. And I had this longing. I started feeling this longing that was mysterious to me. It was like I missed somebody or something or some people or some beings. But I didn't know who I missed. I didn't have any memories of missing beings. I just had that feeling without what it was. And so I said, Barbara, can we target like why I'm saying humans this, humans that, and who do I miss? Like, who do I miss? And she said, well, sure, why not? Let's try it. Let's see what happens. So she puts me under. And the first thing I remembered was I saw this hand. It was like the sleeve, the white sleeve with the hand. And I was a baby in a crib. And it was like holding me. And it was taken away. And I was very sad. And then I had this panic attack in my body. And I had this feeling of extreme anger and claustrophobia at the same time. And it was like, I was saying things like, I don't want to be here in this body. It's so weak. And I was just going off. And Barbara was like, well, you know, I felt like somebody was taking a sofa and stuffing it into a pillowcase. I just felt like, and she said, well, go to when you felt good or whatever, you know, powerful or whatever. And so I popped out and I'm in the void. I'm in like space, okay? We'll call it the blackness. And I'm this white light. And I recognize my friend Nicole and my friend John and their blue lights too. And I'm crying and I can see Earth, and Earth was spinning. The Earth was spinning and I did not want to go to Earth, and I was very upset. So she said, why do you have to go to Earth? And I said, I don't know. And I was just whining and crying. And she said, well, ask someone, why do I have to go to Earth? So then these white light beings appear. And I don't know how many there were. And I don't know what they looked like. They seemed to have, like I seemed to be like a circular blue ball and my friends. But these beings seemed to have like arms and legs. And they were more like, I mean, I would call them like an angelic being or a light being. All I know is when they came on the scene, I lost it. I was just like, they're my home, they're my family, and I'm crying, and I'm like, I used to have white robes, and that's why I wear a white robe in the bathroom. When I was with them, it was this merging and this like just this oneness and meshing, and it was like all time was gone, and it was just knowledge and love and oneness. It was this oneness that was so intense. And I said, why do I have to go to Earth? And they said, the Earth needs you. And I said, why? And they said, to fight evil. And I was like, what? like how? They said, tell people we exist and that we love them. And we're always sending you love. And they gave me this image of the central source coming from somewhere through them, out their arms, and they're pointing it at Earth. But everyone's walking around with an umbrella up. And they said, we're always here doing this, but you guys are all walking around with umbrellas and we're just trying to get you. But it was very, amazing and wonderful. So I think that when we're dealing with all these creatures in the, non-human category, there are amazing creatures that you may run into, as well as the scary ones that put you on the table. So, that's why I kept digging and kept having adventures.
It's kind of cool in a way that we have these. I'm both frightened, but I'm also kind of feel special in a way, Says, like maybe my life has been saved a couple of times. Maybe I am important enough to where they don't want me to die.
I met another girl who had mysterious implant type things in her body, at a Christmas party. I just mentioned something about the blue light. And so this girl says to me, I've had that. And I said, oh, let's go talk. So we go down the little hallway and she said, you're not going to believe this, but I'm from Maryland, and my dad was really high up in the NSA. And he took me camping when I was a little girl, and we made a fire, and we're looking up at the stars. And he says to me, what if I told you that God was an alien, and this was all just a big experiment? And she said, I never forgot it. And I was like, holy crap. I mean, these are the kinds of conversations I have with people when I open my mouth. What I do find recurring is that there are many people in this phenomena that have a military-industrial complex connection, like my NASA relatives. My Uncle Jack worked under Wernher von Braun as a mechanical engineer from the 60s forward. He worked on the Saturn V, and he worked on space shuttle experiment where they had that tethered satellite, and they built it with the Italians, and it broke off, and then it got swarmed by UFOs, and it was all caught on video. He worked on that. Part of me wonders how much of it is actual non-human entities and how much of it could be a MK Ultra mind control scenario. And the red flags for that is the military relatives. I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying I could have been put in a program. Also, I have Rh negative blood. They say that's a thing. So is this a bloodline thing? When my grandmother was in the hospital when she was old, she had this experience once where she saw aliens in the hospital, and the whole family got mad at me. They're like, you told her about all the alien stuff, and now she's hallucinating aliens in the hospital. And I said, maybe she's not hallucinating. Maybe she can see interdimensionally because she's on drugs or she's whatever. But they said she was so hysterical they had to call the Presbyterian minister to pray with her and all this. So I don't know. I just wonder. These are the things you wonder. Like, is it my genetics? Is it my blood type? Is it my family? You know, what is it? Do they come from underground? Do they come from under the oceans? Are they interdimensional? Like, so I have a much broader view than just originally when I thought they were aliens from another planet.
We think that these people living under our feet, and have been for 12,850 years, at one point, I think they took pity on us and came back to the surface as gods. These pantheons of 12 gods that were for the ancient Greeks and the ancient Egyptians and the Canaanites and the Sumerians. And these gods, they take human mates and they have children. And, you know, we're not talking about genetic modification and in vitro fertilization so much here. We're talking about just plain having sex and creating progeny. So to me, we're not dealing with aliens exactly. We're dealing with a branch of humanity that's a lot smarter than we are, more culturally and spiritually advanced than we are.
See, this is one of my theories. I think it's connected. I think the bad aliens, whatever they are, that live here on underground and stuff, I think it's connected to human trafficking. I think the huge number of missing people and the huge money being made in human trafficking has a link to that. I think that from what we've heard from people that have been underground and seen people in cages and all that type of stuff, I think that there could be beings, non-human beings, that require humans for some kind of consumption or experimentation, or, you know, like they pick the cows up and suck all the blood out of them and take certain organs, you know, like what's really going on? And I think the huge numbers of people being trafficked, some of it's for labor, some of it's for organ harvesting, some of it's for ritual abuse, sex abuse, all kinds of creepy, horrible things. But what if some of it is also part of that? I think that's the big criminal enterprise that is, you know, the elephant in the room. And I think it's all coming out at the same time, which is good. I mean, you look at the news and you're like, holy cow, all this stuff that I've read about with David Icke and all these things, it's happening, it's real, it's being exposed right now. So hold on to your hats.
Are all contactees experiencing the same thing? From vivid abduction stories to cryptic telepathic messages and sightings of unearthly crafts, the tales seem eerily similar, yet curiously unique. Could these shared patterns point to a universal truth? Or are they shaped by culture, imagination, and fear? Are their experiences truly aligned? Or is each encounter as mysterious and distinct as the stars themselves?
I do see a lot of people having multiple varieties of experience, like me. People that have scary aliens, benefic aliens, and some kind of paramilitary or military contractor, whatever you want to call it, human-oriented interactions. So it is common to have a mix.
It appears that I had a tracking device in me for quite a number of years, maybe decades. The only reason we know this is because I had a severe injury in 2013, and I almost lost the use of my right arm. And when they did the X-ray, they found this like rice-shaped, like a grain of rice, this long, about that long, right? That was in my deltoid. I had fractures all up in here, right? But none of them got down to the deltoid. And I asked the radiologist, I said, I don't know, it could be an old injury. It looks like something is lodged in there. It's right there. And when they did the surgery, they took out everything. And so they took out the implant too. All right, apparently. But it just looks like the classic one. So I wouldn't be surprised if, I've been being tracked for a good part of my life.
Are these alien visitors benevolent explorers, offering knowledge and guidance? Or are they malevolent intruders with hidden agendas? Stories of miraculous healings and advanced technology collide with chilling tales of abductions and experiments, leaving us to question their true intentions. Are they here to help humanity evolve, or to manipulate us for their own unknown purposes? The line between savior and threat is razor thin, and as we probe deeper into these encounters, we must ask, are they good or bad?
I mean, it's really hard to ascribe good and bad because the very primal fear you have around them is so overriding. Some people use the analogy of the dog at the vet, right? When the dog's at the vet, they're scared. They're having things done to them they don't like. The vet's not evil. The vet's doing something that has to be done, right? But to the dog, it's like, you know. So I don't know if everything they're doing, some people have been healed by the beings, a lot of people. So I don't know. I hate to call them evil, but they do seem to incite a lot of fear in people that sometimes you read they are able to turn that fear off. So if they're able to turn the fear off, then why don't they do it before the person freaks out instead of after? So there's that. The medical stuff really is terrifying and invasive. The breeding program obviously is terrifying and invasive. And the people that have been forced to have sex with these creatures, and have semen taken and eggs taken, I mean, it's rape in many cases. Again, to correlate it to a human trauma where you have a whole support system for that if you get raped. If you get raped by aliens, it's harder to find help for that. So there's that. But then there are these light beings. And then there are, aliens people report working with that have 2 arms and 2 legs and a head and everything. And they love them and they get taught things by them and they get shown around the ship. Everything's going on. And then there's the whole military. It's all happening and I don't know what to make of it.
UFOs have captivated humanity for decades, with sightings ranging from sleek crafts zipping through the skies to the mysterious lights performing impossible maneuvers. Could these strange objects be of earthly origin, or are they the work of advanced military projects, cutting-edge technology kept hidden from the public? Could they be a mix of the two? Human ingenuity intertwined with something not of this world? As the line blurs between science fiction and potential reality, we must ask, are these sightings truly alien, or could the answers lie closer to home?
So my son Jordan, for his 8th birthday, May 10th, 1996, he wanted a telescope. So we're looking through the telescope on his 8th birthday, and you see Mars and Venus and the moon and all the great stuff you see with a telescope. But we're about to put him to bed. I see in the far right corner of the sky, just suddenly, an egg-shaped, a very bright egg-shaped light, sort of white, yellowish color, just sort of appeared in the very far right corner of the sky. And then it traveled very quickly in a straight line all the way across the sky from right to left. And I said, Jordan, look, it's a satellite. There's a satellite. Isn't that cool? Because it looked metallic. It was so bright. And then it stops. It stopped in place for about 30 seconds. And I'm thinking, that satellite's going to plummet to Earth. Then it just says, okay, I'm going to go back now. And then it went back the way it came in the straight line all the way across again to the right side of my peripheral vision. And then it just vanished. So I'm like, what? And I was amazed. My son had gotten to bed at this point, and I'm like, okay, not a plane, not a helicopter, not a missile, not a weather balloon, not a meteor or a comet or an asteroid. What can travel that fast, stop, and reverse its course exactly? And I only came up with 2 things, a military drone or an extraterrestrial craft. Now, I've told that story all over the world. Jimmy Church, when I told him, said, Dan, you were near Edwards, right? Yeah. He goes, they test military drones there all the time. Military craft using ET technology. He goes, they do it all the time, because he lives there as well. He said, you saw a military craft that used UFO technology. I said, Jimmy, that absolutely makes sense to me.
Close encounters with UFOs are often categorized into 5 types, each revealing a different aspect of human and alien interaction. Close encounters of the first kind, CE1, involve simply witnessing a UFO, often at a close distance. The second kind, CE2, includes physical evidence left behind, like scorch marks or radiation traces. The third kind, CE3, escalates to sightings of the beings themselves, alien life forms associated with the craft. Close encounters of the fourth kind, CE4, delve deeper, involving abductions and direct contact experiences. And the very rare fifth kind, CE5, shifts to intentional communication, where humans actively attempt to initiate contact.
The fourth and final UFO event that I had was very recently. It was June 2nd, 2024, at Contact in the Desert, and it was a CE5 event. They had, and I'm going to say maybe 200 people, and then all of us were just holding hands and we're looking up. It started at 9 p.m., and the guy with the microphone is like, okay, let's open our hearts, open our minds, let's welcome our space brothers. We want to see you. We want to communicate with you. Please reveal yourselves to us. Show yourselves to us. We're here for you. We want to have communication. So from 9 till 10:30, when we're holding hands and looking up, at first I'm thinking, this is really cool. Okay, this is really cool. Everyone here loves each other. This is really cool. It's Contact. It's Palm Springs, beautiful summer night, perfect sky. And I said, there's no way. I'm thinking, you can't summon an extraterrestrial craft or being. You can't just wish it and make it happen. I said, there's just no way that can happen. I had to be up at 6 a.m. the next morning to do stuff. I'm looking at my watch. It's 10:30. I'm looking at my watch. And I said to myself, if I don't see a UFO in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to bed. As soon as that happened, and I swear to God, this is true, another true story, we all of a sudden, above the open sky, we heard bang, like that. Bang, right above us. We looked up, a large puff of dark gray smoke in the sky just appeared just in the middle of the sky. Bang. And we saw that, and then from that, it's a true story, out of that came a V-shaped UFO, shot out of this smoke. It just shot out really slow, above all of our heads, maybe 200 feet. Crystal clear, couldn't have been more clear. It was vanilla white color, V. Vanilla white, bright vanilla white. The tips were rounded, and it had a gold ribbon of color through the white, and it reminded me of vanilla ice cream with caramel. It looked like ice cream. It was beautiful, and it was slow. And it went like this, and I'm like, holy S. Oh my God. Then, and this is the best part of all, underneath each of the two wings were 3 suction cup, they looked like octopus suction pods. 3 and 3 under each of the wings, 3. They were translucent, light brown, translucent suction pods. They were lit up, and they were pulsing like this, like heartbeats. And I'm looking at, so I'm see the top. Clearly, it's a craft. It's a machine, and attached were these things that were alive. They looked like heartbeats. They were pulsing like boom, 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 boom. I said to myself, whatever that thing is, it's alive. That's alive. It went very slowly, maybe 10, 12 seconds, and then it just vanished. So everyone cheered. I had tears in my eyes. I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't miss that, man. Another 8 minutes, I would have missed that. That was it.
I like sharing my story because in my experience, because I have a big mouth, because I bring it up in subtle ways and then it gets rolling, I hear other people's stories. They say, oh my gosh, this lady's telling me this. Well, I'm going to tell you what happened to me. And so I have found out over the years, this is not as rare as you think. People are having paranormal encounters all the time, every walk of life. And so if you don't open your mouth first, you'll never hear their stories. So for me, I just don't care at all about skeptics. I'm like, well, stay in your happy place.
I've had many, many experiences. We were delivering plants to the valley. We're all standing there, and up in the sky, Chris looks over and he goes, look, is that your friends? It's like, and we look over there and it's like, oh, wow. I mean, it was like a ship. We could see, it was a big ship out there, and it started moving, started moving across the sky and doing all these things that were characteristics of what I see, very unusual movements, and it was really doing it. It was amazing. and we're looking at it, and now I'm seeing it, and it's starting to come down. It's a big light. It's almost dawn, and it's coming down out of the sky, and it's like we're on this horseshoe-shaped grow field, and there's this giant couple of oak trees behind this thing, and huge, huge oak trees. And I mean, it came out of the sky. I could never see the shape of a ship, but it came down this glowing white thing and came all the way down behind those oak trees. And I started walking out through the field towards it, going, I'm going. And my other guys were backing up. Everybody was backing up. What shit was going on? We just watched that thing, and I started going towards it. And then it just started gliding along the riverbank as it was, and just and took off and went into space and disappeared in front of 20 of us.
A report came out where they studied 144 UFOs and determining that 143 are still unidentified, still unknown. They were not able to debunk them, in other words. One of them turned out to be a deflating weather balloon, but otherwise all of them were still genuine UFOs, mostly military, mostly pilots seen by,
Where do they come from? Are they visitors from distant planets traveling light years across the cosmos to reach us? Could they be interdimensional travelers, slipping through the fabric of reality from a parallel universe? Or are they closer than we think, originating from hidden bases deep beneath the oceans or even within our own solar system? Each theory opens a door to a different realm of possibility, leaving us to wonder, where do these mysterious objects truly call home?
To me, there are 5 major categories of where they're from. This is my opinion, and I've heard this elsewhere, of course. Other planets and star systems and galaxies. Well, that's the most obvious one. Then the question is, how do they travel such distances? And then you do string theory and Einstein's relativity, and if you travel through a wormhole in space, it takes a very short period of time. But other planets and star systems, that certainly makes sense. There's a lot of evidence that there are extraterrestrial races underwater on the Earth. There's a base off Catalina Island that I know. There are bases underneath the world's oceans on planet Earth. There are theories that some of the extraterrestrial races live in inner Earth. My favorite is that races of extraterrestrials are humans from the future coming back to see where we're at. Some of the extraterrestrials, possibly the Greys, I've heard that some of the Greys are us from the future. Think about it. Head, 2 arms, 2 legs, nose, eyes, slits, comparable body physiques of humans and Greys, comparable. Pleiadians are the tall white Nordics in my book. They're from the Pleiades. And then there's another theory. Avi Loeb believes in this theory. Some extraterrestrial entities are interdimensional. Well, that explains a tremendous amount. A lot of people say that when they're abducted in their sleep, they go through their ceilings of their homes, or they go through walls or doors, and they just go through and come back down. By definition, people can't just go through a ceiling or a door. There has to be some kind of interdimensionality. A lot of people see craft in the sky. You'll see it. It's right there. It's metallic. It vanishes. 10 seconds later, it comes back. There it is again. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? There's no clouds there. Where'd it go? Well, it has to be interdimensional. It's in between. So there are many different theories. Big picture, God or infinite creator created all things, I believe. From there, many hundreds of different entities of living beings exist throughout the universe. My friend Craig Campobasso has a book called The Alien Almanac. I think he says there's 154 different races of extraterrestrials. I forget the number. I think it's 150 races of extraterrestrial beings that have been recounted by humans during the course of human history. We know the tall whites, the beautiful tall whites in my book, the reptilians, the draconians, the ones that look like praying mantises, apparently. I think I would be scared shitless if I saw a praying mantis walk through this door.
While many believe these encounters point to visitors from distant stars, others propose a far stranger idea, that these beings are not visitors at all. Could they already be here, hidden, shaping our world in ways we can barely understand?
At the age of 3, I would be visited in the middle of the night fairly frequently by this invisible 2-legged being that would jump on my chest and my stomach. My family came from England. I kind of grew up in a very traditional British house, so But I was also introduced from a very young age that we had this family protector called O'Glegley, who is a spirit guide, and that he'd appeared for many people throughout generations and helped them out, even saved lives occasionally.
That's the thing. And so I think one of the reasons disclosure is so slow in coming is it's not possibly about aliens from other planets. I mean, it could be. It could be aliens underneath the mountains.
We think that this meeting between Eisenhower and the Nordics, we think they set a disclosure date that has since come and gone. Stephen and I believe at this point that it's actually us that want to keep this quiet, is trying to keep a lid on it. And we think our cousins are actually trying to come out to the world. That's why they're showing themselves so often. I think that's what crop circles are all about, is they're trying to go around our military and communicate directly with our science community.
Should those who have experienced alien encounters share these stories? For many, the fear of ridicule and disbelief keeps them silent, yet their accounts could hold valuable clues to understanding these mysterious events. By speaking out, the experiencers risk judgment or even losing their jobs, but also can open the door to connection, validation, or perhaps even answers.
It's a very personal decision. For me, it was just so natural because I'm so extroverted and I just didn't care. So if I'm going to go out there and say, you know what, I was abducted by beings and it seemed really real and I have some evidence, throw that into the mix. You know, Fran Drescher, who ran SAG, she's an abductee. Goldie Hawn is now talking about seeing aliens, and her husband, or whatever partner, they're not married, Kurt Russell, is talking about how he was flying a plane into Phoenix and saw the Phoenix lights the night it happened. So there are a lot of people that are, quote, famous that are coming out. But if you're not famous, or if you're in a job where you think you have to toe the line and have a professional appearance, I get it why people don't want to come out, because, you know, you got to make a living and you don't want your living to be destroyed over this. But I'm lucky enough that I was, you know, happy communicating it and getting away with it. But I get it if people don't want to.
I grew up in a family that accepted it. Grew up from a very young age that this was part of our family. And my dad was highly functional. I think it's because we were introduced to it early throughout our lives. I mean, if let's say, for instance, if somebody who's like 18 or 19, all of a sudden they start getting knocking behind their heads on the wall whenever we're trying to get to sleep, you probably have to go to see a psychiatrist. They probably would put you on medication, or you go to counseling, or then maybe you say, well, I don't want to think about it, so I'm going to maybe drink a bunch of booze so I can knock myself out, or maybe talk out with friends and have a Coke party or something like that. But yeah, it's just I think it's because we were introduced to it young, and it was accepted. That's why we dealt with it differently. My sister still, she has her thing about the whole spirit thing, right? But they're not aliens. They're really not aliens, okay? O'Glegley, she said that she talked to O'Glegley in one of her spirit box things, and O'Glegley says, I'm not an alien. Well, yeah, we know you're not an alien. You're actually really our cousins.
These incidents are real to the experiencers. Vivid memories of abductions, unexplained marks, and encounters with otherworldly beings that often leave those involved utterly convinced. But could these events be influenced by psychological factors or even shared cultural narratives? Are they genuine interactions with something beyond human understanding? Or could they be illusions crafted by the mind? Which begs the question, how can we truly know what's real?
I don't know. I mean, the imagination is powerful. There are those that argue hypnosis is not perfect, that it could be a mixture of things you've read. Like if I knew what a MyLab was, I could imagine a MyLab scenario. And that's a valid argument. But I think that when you have the tangible item in your body connected to the memory, which is very real to you and very emotional and doesn't seem to be related to anything else you've ever had in your normal life. Like, people would say to me, oh, you know, you didn't really have an alien baby pulled out. I mean, first they say, well, did you have sex with aliens? And I say, no, I don't have a memory of having sex with aliens. And then they'll say, well, you must have just that must be a screen memory. You must have had an abortion and you feel guilty. And so you put it into this alien thing. And I'm like, that might make sense, but I've never had an abortion, so that doesn't count for me. So next, what else you got? And I just keep saying, look, I had no period. It came back after the UFO. I had this incredible memory where I was screaming and crying and my teeth were chattering so hard. I thought I lost 2 or 3 pounds in this session, just sweating and screaming. If you heard it, you would be like, I encourage people to actually listen to hypnosis sessions and get the emotional weight of it. It's very disturbing. So to me, it seems real. And then, you bring in all the actual videos of UFOs and all the multiple witnesses and the disclosure, the military, all that. I mean, there's stuff going on. The question is, what's the nature of it? What's the agenda of it? And how do we interface with it in a way that is not detrimental to our existence?
The Lord went before the Israelites by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they might travel by day and by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people. Exodus 13, chapter 21 and 22. That's in Exodus. A pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. That's not the moon or the sun. A pillar is a long, some people interpret it as a long cylindrical, like a column. That was a UFO. That was a craft. Extraterrestrials were helping Moses and the Israelites leave Egypt. They helped part the Red Sea. They provided manna from heaven. They gave Moses the 10 Commandments. All of these supernatural events from Exodus can be explained if instead of God or angels, you insert extraterrestrial life instead. It makes perfect sense. I've been studying this since 2007, so almost 20 years. I've read 1 million books. I've gone to 1 million conventions. I've seen 1 million lectures. I've watched 1 million documentaries. Unless you study this field, like my closest friends, my mother, my brothers, they think I'm insane. They think I'm nuts. They think it's funny. They think it's amusing. Oh yeah, Danny with the aliens. My mother goes, Danny, it's enough with the aliens already. It's enough already. None of these people have studied this for 20 years. When you study this and you watch Eric Von Daniken and Giorgio and Richard Dolan and Steve Bassett and Nick Pope and Paul Hynek, and when you go to Contact in the Desert, there's 2,000 documentaries on UFO TV. I spent an hour with Travis Walton, one-on-one. He's telling me his experiences. There's such a wealth of information. There's such a remarkable wealth. If you don't believe, that's fine, but you can't say, oh, there's no aliens, it's all BS. You can't say that if you haven't looked into it and studied it. Before 2007, when I went into that paranormal bookstore, I would have said, aliens? What are you, aliens? What kind of aliens? What are you talking about? Once you open up your world, and Richard Dolan's the guy's a genius. Nick Pope is brilliant. These are Avi Loeb, who I interviewed recently on my pod. These are geniuses. Some of these people are literally geniuses. These people know this stuff is real. They're not dumb people. These are not hoaxsters. These are people that are saying, hey, look, there's remarkable amounts of evidence and information. You have to look into this. It's not going to be given to you. It's like when I saw Giorgio in 2007. My parents, my friends, my rabbi, and my teachers. Zero information about the possibilities of extraterrestrial life. Zero. Wasn't even remotely a topic of conversation, never came up, never once was discussed, never ever. So you have to pursue this. Read books, watch documentaries, go to conventions and lectures. There's a lot of stuff, tons of stuff online. There's 1 million podcasts. And try to educate yourself. To just dismiss that extraterrestrial life doesn't exist, it's short-sighted, and it just happens to be factually incorrect. It's just not true. Obama knew some stuff, Clinton knew some stuff. If you watch their clips with Jimmy Kimmel, and Kimmel's like, "Come on, President Obama tells you." And Jimmy, I can't tell you, and he's laughing. And he says, "I can't tell you. I can't tell you?" Okay, well, there's clearly information there, right? So anyway, I think that's it for me.